Previously on Video Game Hangover. Oh my God!
You went dumpster diving
horrific.
for this game and bought it based on the description on the back of the box.
I did. Well, it was me standing in Best Buy holding it in my hand and looking up the Metacritic score on it, which I believe was in the 50s.
You were going to make somebody a great grandmother someday.
Hello, people of the internet. Welcome to Video Game Hangover. And in a break from tradition this week, I'd like to start the show with a joke.
Okay.
What kind of pants does Mario wear?
No?
Denim, denim, denim. Heard that today and had to share. Each week on VGH.
That's it, folks. Good night.
Thanks for sharing, Randy.
We'll go out on a high note. Exactly. Each week on VGH, we'll discuss the games that have been keeping us up late and break down a gaming-related topic. The older we get, the harder it seems to find time for the latest 100-hour JRPG. On this week's show, we are taking...
Sorry.
What is going on?
Sorry.
On this week's show, we're taking a cue from a member of the VGH community and talking about scalable experiences in video games and what playing on the normal difficulty really means. We'll also talk about the games we've been playing lately in the Hangover, and we'll wrap things up with Last Call. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, and I do not have a video game joke. I just realized I'm a little sad. I have to do something about that.
This is Paul Sandu and Randy again. I do apologize for stepping on your toes. I am so sorry, my man.
Sorry, I didn't prepare you guys for
denim,
that at all.
Denim. Dun, dun, dun.
What
So
is
where do
going
you
on?
where do we go from there?
That's your cue, DJ. Save
We are
us.
continuing on. Yes, literally getting past whatever just happened. Backlog Attack 2013 has begun. If you listen to last week's show, we started cutting into our backlogs, our piles of shame. And along the same veins, we asked you guys over the weekend how your backlogs were doing. And in particular, God, that's a word, I think. In particular, we wanted to know what is the oldest unplayed game sitting in your backlog right now. And we offer bonus points if it's for a system you no longer own or some other strange conditions surrounding it. We got a lot of good answers to this, actually. I was very impressed. And, well, also kind of ashamed that all these old games sitting around.
Is that the right word?
It's a weird kind of impressed, right?
Yeah.
We're all winners.
It's mark of pride / embarrassment. But anyway, getting into your backlogs, Cube00 on Twitter says he's got Singularity, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 3 Game of the Year, which are not that old, I don't think.
That's not too bad, actually.
I wouldn't be too embarrassed, although they are quite a time investment. So good luck getting through those. Don't feel too bad about them, though. Alan Rappa says God of War, Ghost of Sparta on the PSP, purchased digitally, and he no longer has his PSP to play them on. But sounds like he may give it a go on the Vita at some point. So that's a relief. Goldbug74 says The Simpsons Hit and Run on PS2, still in the plastic on his shelf.
Oh.
That's kind of I'm not a big Simpsons guy, but I imagine that if you were really into The Simpsons, like one of my my former roommates who I really tried to push this game on, this would be like the coolest thing, wouldn't it? It's like, do you guys know about this?
It's a Simpsons kart racer, right?
But it's like Simpsons Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And they like built a virtual Springfield that you play the game in. I was like,
oh, cool.
That's amazing. But anyway, Goldbug, hope you get to that someday. Freaky Zeke chimes in. He says he's had them for years, but he still has not started Eternal Darkness or, The Wind Waker.
What?
Gotta play the
Both
Wind
of
Waker.
those.
Yeah.
Well, I have Eternal Darkness sitting in my drawer there.
I think you have my copy of Eternal Darkness. Didn't I sell that to you?
I bought it from someone. It may have been you.
That might have been me. Yeah.
Matt the Vegan chimes in. He says also has Eternal Darkness unplayed. And I might be jumping ahead, but I also have Eternal Darkness. I have not played it. And that is the oldest game in my backlog at the moment.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Aren't they trying to sort of kickstart a sequel to
They are trying very hard to do
Eternal
something
Darkness,
about
and they
that,
keep
but-
changing the conditions and kind of screwing with people's money, so...
Yeah.
Shadows of the Eternals, I think I remember reading about that, but yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't think that's a great bet if you're trying to kickstart that. So. Anyway, those were all fantastic, but I was wondering when people would start to throw out the really old stuff. So we heard from Hardly Dan, who says Frontier Elite 2 for the Amiga.
Wow.
He says no idea where his Amiga 500 Plus is. His mother may have thrown it out. So that's quite old. Getting back there far enough, I'm not totally sure what the lineage is. And I said, that's pretty good. Can anyone do better? Totally thinking Hardly Dan had this in the bag. And then TTBF speaks up and says, Interplanetary Voyage for the Odyssey.
Oh my
which is
God.
like pretty much trumps anything. The first home video game console. I don't think it was like the first game, but man, you'd have to dig pretty deep to beat that, I think.
Late 70s, early 80s, right? It's got to be.
Quite old.
Well,
Yeah.
I like how he says he never even owned the system, so triple bonus point victory right
How do I
there.
have this? Where
Yes.
did it come from?
Yeah. So that's fantastic. TTBF, congratulations. You're the backlog king. Hopefully someday soon you are able to find an Odyssey in a garage sale or something, and maybe it'll still even work. Who knows?
Right. That'd be quite impressive. Put that on YouTube.
Yeah. That would be
So
something.
did you guys dig? What is the oldest game in your personal collections?
Well, DJ's already said his is it's Eternal Darkness for sure. He double checked.
I think so, and that's just going by the oldest unplayed game, because I have not even gotten into it.
It's funny that I've actually played that all the way through. There's so many people who have not played that game, and there are so many games I've never even heard of, but I've played Eternal Darkness, so...
I think that's
feel,
one of the best games a lot of people never played.
Right.
It seriously is. I mean, I've played it for like 2 hours, and I really enjoyed it, and then I had to return it to the Blockbuster, and then Blockbuster went under, so I blame them.
Man.
I had a conversation with a coworker about unplayed games, and he says at some point it breaks down to, do you want to play it, or do you want to have played it?
Right.
So I think at some point it's just sort of bragging rights and being able to cross it off some sort of mental list. But I think the oldest game that I still have in the shrink wrap is Mark Echo's Getting Up Contents Under Pressure.
Oh dear God!
What the hell is that?
Just get rid of that.
It's a future dystopian open world game where you play a graffiti artist who fights back against the corporate machine by tagging up your city.
Oh, yeah!
I don't know why I have it. I have no memory of even buying it, but I still have it for the original Xbox, sealed in plastic. It came out in 2006. I looked it up today. It's at least 13 years old.
How is that 13 years old?
No,
I don't know.
you got to do something about this. This is
7 years. 7 years old.
13? No.
Yeah,
7.
sorry. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at jokes.
My game is 13 years old.
I was gonna say this game. The only thing I know about this game is that it was developed by the guys who eventually turned into Double Helix games, which may be one of the worst game developers. Like the worst.
Randy, you got to dig into this, man.
Maybe
Right, seriously.
I don't know if like technically the worst or whatever, but definitely one of the most infamous, because they did like that Silent Hill sequel. They did the third-person front mission shooter.
Oh.
They're currently doing the new Killer Instinct, and then
Wait, are these
recently
the guys
released
who's doing Strider? Yeah, okay. I
Yeah,
remember you
and
mentioning that.
everyone hates them.
Oh, Randy, you got to YouTube that shit, man.
Sure, yeah, exactly. My YouTube challenge. This is incidentally, I'm just reading about this on Wikipedia now, and I never made this connection. But all the music in the game is by RJD2, who also does the theme from Mad Men. Fast forward a bunch of years, so I don't know. That's interesting, right?
I think
Yeah,
that
right?
would be a
Yes,
poor reason to play the
absolutely.
game.
I think it's the best reason you could ever think of to play that game.
I don't think I have a device to play it on at this point, so that's moot.
Yeah.
From the creators of the theme song to Mad Men, Mark Echo's Getting Up.
So what was your game, Paul? Did you say that?
Yeah, it's Majora's Mask for the N64.
Oh.
So I still own the system, and I think I own a hard copy of the game, the actual cart, and an N64 that I believe still works, and I also own a virtual copy on the Wii. So, yeah, Courtney's been giving me grief for years. She's like, oh, it's just as good as... what the hell is Zelda? Ocarina?
Ocarina, yeah.
Yeah, she says she likes
I
it
hear
more
that's
than
very,
Ocarina,
very good,
so.
yeah.
I've heard nothing but good stuff about it. I just haven't played it. So 13 years now, I still haven't played Majora's Mask.
Actually, I have that as well. It didn't occur to me. I haven't played it either, but I have whatever the special edition for GameCube.
Oh, right.
Huh.
We should
That
YouTube
Zelda
that shit,
collection.
man.
That might, does that beat Eternal Darkness? When did that come out? I guess if
Eternal
you go with the
Darkness was
N64,
02.
that's very old.
Yeah, it's going way back.
It's older than the GameCube, so you've got a couple years on Eternal Darkness.
It's a tie. We're all winners.
Oh dear. Okay, well, yeah, that's. I guess that's it. I gotta do that. Anyway, congratulations to all the winners/losers in the backlog challenge this week. I think we'll have more backlog-related conversation later.
Oh, definitely.
And then we have a note from Don't Judge My ADD. Says he saw we were pointing out backloggery last week, and he says he recommends Darkadia.com as well. We'll have a link to this. Another game collection kind of progress tracking site. I checked it out, and it's interesting. It works with Giant Bomb's database, so if you like having a pre-populated database of games, you can just search through. That's nice. But where it differs from the backloggery is you can like mark whether you've played or beaten a game. It's very similar to the backloggery, but then on Darkadia you can click a button that says you have shelved it, which is kind of like admitting defeat, I think.
The white flag icon.
Right.
Yeah. So, depending on your backlog play style, you can pick one site, which one is the best for you. So
Cool.
that was a cool recommendation. Thank you very much. Don't judge my ADD. And then finally, the Animal Crossing comment of the week comes from Jeb, who left a comment on VGHangover.com. When you guys want to read this, you guys should talk for a while.
I'll read it.
Sure. Okay, go, Paul.
Okay. Jeb says, not super topical, but New Leaf is my first AC experience, and I am freaking out. I am just letting things happen. Well, that's good, because you definitely want to just let things happen in Animal Crossing. He goes on to say, I just realized you can bonk rocks and get them to poop out gems.
True.
I caught an ocean sunfish. I paid a fortune for a bridge about 60 feet from my other bridge, but it feels awesome. My museum rocks so hard. Hold on, there's more. Weeds! You have to pull them up. I can get lemons to grow, but not mangoes. Everyone calls me Nutmeg. My house disappoints everyone in town. Boo! Oh. It makes me crazy, but not crazy that the stores have hours. I love it. It's barely a game, but I can't stand to take it out of the 3DS. Boom! That is Animal Crossing in a nutshell.
I think that's it. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
pretty good, yeah.
It's a little long for a back-of-the-box quote, but I think it sums it up pretty nicely.
Everyone
see that
calls
on
me
there, just
Nutmeg. Love it.
No screenshots, just an enormous quote taking up the whole back.
Oh, man.
I like the discovery that you can bonk rocks and they poop out gems, because my sort of default in Animal Crossing, when there's anything in the game that I don't know what to do with, is can I hit it with something and get money to come out of it?
Hit your villagers, Randy. Try that.
Yeah, right, exactly. I've recently started catching fleas on my villagers. I found that you can, every now and then they get a little pew, 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 kind of hopping around their head, and you go up with a net and whack them, and they're deeply embarrassed that you had to catch a flea on them.
Doing a little, yeah.
Yep. A little community grooming.
Grooming. Anyway, that's a fantastic comment.
It really is, yeah.
Thank you to everyone who wrote in. We'll be back on the Twitter this weekend.
I hope Jeb follows up in a couple of months and gives us an update, because that is pretty much how people's first experience go for the game. When you don't know anything about it. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. And definitely go to our Google Docs spreadsheet and share your friend code and information with us, and we'll add you to our systems and get other folks around the interwebs to add you to theirs, and we can come to your house and judge it for you. So.
We'll be much kinder than the animals.
Sure, of course. Yes.
I might have seen a Jeb on the list, but Jeb, if that's not you, if that's some other Jeb, make sure you're on there, and we will get everyone connected.
Yeah, good call.
Jeb too. Cool. Well, let's get into the Hangover, where we talk about the games we've been playing lately. We will sort of dovetail the Hangover and our summer backlog attack catch up for this week as well. I'll start, I guess. I want to point out that I finished The Last of Us. We've sort of talked...
you finished it.
I finished it. We talked about that quite a bit on the show, and I certainly don't want to do spoilers or anything like that, but maybe we can throw a little bonus something together.
Yeah.
But, yeah, The Last of Us. Man, what a game. What an ending.
Yep. Oh, man.
And that's really about all I can say about that. It's gorgeous. It's quite an experience. Dude, there's a lot of stealth in that game. But you feel pretty awesome later on. You will get your ass handed to you quite a bit at the beginning, but you definitely build a fluency and a bit of an arsenal. Never overpowered,
Yes.
Always sort of undergunned, but you definitely kind of master the mechanics and feel like a bit of a badass when it goes your way.
Yes, you get much more proficient at managing all your resources.
Yeah. Cool. But love it. And maybe we could talk about it a little bit more outside of the context of a normal show and push record and share it with the crew. We'll see what we can do about that.
Yeah.
And then my summer backlog update. I played
I heard
some
that
of
sigh. I heard that.
some of The Walking Dead Survival Instinct.
If you weren't here last week, Randy basically picked the 6 worst games from the last few years. They weren't all that bad, but the
5 worst games and XCOM.
No, that Resident Evil game, that's really good.
Okay,
4
we'll see how
worst
that goes
games.
too. Sure. So it's really, really hard to go from playing The Last of Us to playing The Walking Dead Survival Instinct game back to back, because they are both essentially zombie games. And I'm making air quotes here that nobody can see, but
I can see them.
it's just not good at all. And I thought maybe there would be some redemption to it in that I like these characters. It is a prequel to the Walking Dead TV show, which I guess sort of makes it a prequel to the comic book as well. You play as the Dixon brothers, Merle and Daryl, and it starts off with some event I guess I won't get into that's kind of spoilery, where Daryl then has to sort of travel across post-apocalyptic United States to try to find his brother Merle, fully voice acted by the folks from the TV show. It's ugly, it's clunky, it's not really linear. Like the first town you stop in, there's a number of city streets and a couple of buildings, and they all have multiple floors and locked doors, and you're looking for keys, and you're meeting survivors who are like, hey, I'll trade you some gas if you can get me some food. So you have to sort of battle your way through the infested jailhouse to get a food cache and weapons from that and bring it over to this guy and trade. So you're kind of managing some sort of resources and stuff, and that's kind of interesting but slight.
Are you like pretty strapped for supplies, or it's like
you are very strapped for supplies? Yeah,
okay.
You basically start with a knife and you basically start with a knife. So you're essentially stalking the streets, trying to kill zombies with a knife, and you have a sort of stabbing attack, and it takes 3 stabs in the head to kill a zombie. But they sort of lumber towards you and sort of grab for you, and you have to stun them before you can stab them. So it's a 2-button thing. You have to stun and then stab, and then stun and then stab. And it takes 6 shots every single time to kill every single zombie. So like you walk around a corner and there's 15
you have to stun
zombies.
them every single time?
Yeah, every single goddamn time. They stagger backwards a little bit, and you stab them in the head. And then I found a hammer, and I'm like, oh, this will make things a little bit easier. But no, it's the same sort of bullshit cadence to the fighting. And then I found a gun, and I'm like, oh, thank God, a gun. Headshots, I can just waste everybody. But as soon as you fire a gun, hordes of zombies come because it makes tons of noise.
That's what happens, Randy.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we're going to talk about sort of gaming difficulty and stuff like that. But am I doing something wrong? I'm not sure, like, if I'm playing the shitty Walking Dead game properly, because I'm kind of running in circles sometimes. Last night, sitting on the couch playing this game with my girlfriend, whose sort of back of the box quote essentially is, "Why does it look like shit?" Is me running in circles around sort of the burned out remains of a zombie infested trailer park, trying to find one specific zombie so I can kill it and take keys off of its body. And yeah, just hordes, just, invisible doors opening and wave after wave of zombie coming at me, and I have a knife, and I'm standing on the hood of a car going, what do you want me to do? So, yeah. I don't know. I'm going to go back to it. I guess I'll play it a little bit more just for the sake of science. But
you have to
give it a
finish
few
it.
more hours.
Yeah.
It's on your backlog list, dude. You have to finish it.
But I may have to hit that shelve it button at some point.
We should figure out how many escapes you can do.
You're only allowed to do that once, so choose wisely.
Oh, really? Okay.
One lifeline? I don't know. We'll see.
I got quite a few games coming up that I might require those on, so we'll see how.
Next one, you have to, you call up your friend and have them come over and finish it.
Right, precisely. So if you're listening to this and there's any part of you that's kind of like, oh, I like The Walking Dead, maybe I'll play this on the cheap. Just based on my first maybe 3 or 4 hours with the game, I would say don't bother.
I could have told you that 2 months ago.
We tried to tell you that last week.
Yeah.
I like to find these things out for myself.
You knew better.
Okay, well,
you knew.
At least you'll have that sense of accomplishment.
Sure, precisely. Somebody be the only one on your block that's finished The Walking Dead Survival Instinct.
I played The Walking Dead, and it was educational.
Right.
It taught me a lot of things about myself.
I'll send you a placard that I make.
Right, exactly.
Paper.
DJ, what are you playing?
Just a quick update to those new Me Plaza games I was talking about last week. I picked up a few more Street Passes, and there's like an entire other component to the Flower Town game that I didn't realize was there last week, where you can like develop your own seeds based on, I guess, what other plants people bring into your Flower Town. So there's more game there than I expected. I'll give it another shot, but still the Street Passes are pretty sparse. There's not a festival going on around here. So, that's just a quick update. I wanted to give that another shout out because I feel like maybe I got the short end of the stick last week.
Well, the Nintendo stock is up, so clearly your conversation about that game.
Yes, man. Oh, you guys got to check out MeForce. It's still a ton of fun. But getting into my backlog, I got into Half Minute Hero.
Yes, what the hell is this all about?
Finished it, or at least a large portion of it. It's much longer than the name would imply. It's not quite half a minute. But, so if you haven't played this, it is kind of, it's absurd. It's like, Randy, you played this, right?
I played the PSP edition of it, yeah.
Right, so it's kind of like a JRPG, just like reduced down to the bare mechanics and set on a small time frame to the point of just being completely hyperactive and psychotic. But it's a lot of fun. So like the premise is you're this generic RPG hero, and there's a generic RPG evil lord who's planning to destroy the world. And he has a spell that's gonna... What's that?
He has generic weapons.
Yeah. Well, no, he has this spell that's going to destroy the world, and it takes 30 seconds to cast it. So you have to... In that time, you have to set out and fight monsters and level yourself up and, do all the standard RPG stuff, and then fight this evil lord. But, you only have 30 seconds to do it. So you have the help of this time goddess who comes down and grants you the power to rewind time for 30 seconds for a small fee every once in a while. So you go out and level. Then after you've done enough of that, you reset time, you do it all again. But the way the game plays out, like the pacing of it is just ridiculous, because like it's not just your standard random battles. You like run out in the field, and it'll show like your hero sprinting across the screen, and he like steamrolls over a couple of enemies, and it's like numbers flying out so fast you can't even read them, and the battle ends, and it's like level up across the screen, and it's just like everything is so frenetic. It's hilarious. Like you run through a town, you talk to everybody in like 5 seconds. It's just like it's so fast and ridiculous. Like the transitions between town and battle and overworld and back to town are so fast. You just hear like the first couple seconds of every song, basically. So it's like it's insane. It's like if you were watching somebody play this, you'd be like, I have no idea what's going on in this game. It looks like you're playing an RPG on fast forward.
Yeah, I see that's. I remember sort of my impression of it being that it was very frenetic, that it was people talking very fast and giving you very quick objectives, and you had to sort of, there was not a lot of stand around time. And I think it came to me sort of as a recommendation from me bemoaning not wanting to play a JRPG, but not wanting to grind and do all of sort of the minutia that goes with it. And they're like, oh, you have got to play this game because it eliminates all of that stuff. It doesn't necessarily eliminate it, but it sort of repackages them, I think, in a way that is much more bite-sized and a little easier to manage.
Yeah, like if you've played this all the way through, you've pretty much played every JRPG. Because you go through like different lands, and each land, you fight multiple evil lords. You have to stop from casting the spell. But everywhere you go, there's like a new problem that the villagers or the locals are facing, and every one of them is like, I remember this from whatever RPG. I think one of the first towns you go to is like, you get there and they're like, oh no, the bridge is broken. Somebody needs to fix the bridge. And you're like, oh, okay. I played this game. But, it draws on a lot of like RPG kind of history and tropes, and there are a lot of kind of winky in jokes.
Right.
That's kind of fun,
it's very
though.
sort of jokey and
yeah, it's very funny. It's like just funny in a really silly kind of way.
Yeah.
If you're into JRPGs and you want kind of a JRPG light, it's pretty funny, not too difficult, definitely worth checking out. I was going to say one more thing about it. Oh yeah, so it started out on the PSP, and I think it really would work well as a portable. Like you could really tell because the levels don't last very long. Even though you're resetting this 30-second time frame multiple times, they take maybe 2 or 3 minutes to complete. Some of the later ones get a little more complicated, but very bite-sized, very easy to take on the road,
so it's
imagine.
you're not playing in 30-second chunks. It's just that within the game, like the time in the game, it's only 30 seconds that passes.
Yeah,
but it's a few minutes. Oh, okay.
There's a countdown timer. Basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering how that was
going to
work. It's like, how can you do anything in 30 real-world seconds? I was very curious.
Right.
Okay, so that makes
it's
sense.
video game time, but it is quick. It is definitely sped up.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was 30 seconds
your
sped
level,
up,
your level and some of your progress carries over as you reset the time, but like some other events will reset. Like if like there's a volcano that's going to go erupt and block you from reaching the evil lord, you can reset time to before that so you can make it through. But it has a lot of fun with like the time resetting too, so there's some cool stuff going on. And I said I finished it, so I think I finished the main quest, and there are a few kind of side quests to do. Actually, a lot of surprisingly large amount of side quests in the main quest as well. So I think there's still more stuff to do, so I'm going to spend a little more time with it before moving on to the next game. But that was a lot of fun. And yeah.
Cool. And you said you played it on Steam, and it's kind of an expanded version of its original.
Yes,
yeah.
I don't know the exact details, but I think there is more beyond the PSP version in there.
Excellent. It sounds like I might actually enjoy it a lot.
I think you would. Yeah, it's definitely a good time.
One more game on the backlog, Paul.
Well,
One more.
God, like I need that. I mean, I'll just get this out of the way, gentlemen. I have not started on my backlog in the last week there, so I'm already behind the 8 ball.
You're still kind of poking at a few of the games you've been
What
playing
have you been
recently,
doing?
though.
I have not had a whole lot of time to play games. I've just been so busy with work and school and stuff. But just puttering around at Animal Crossing and playing Project Cross Zone anytime I get 20, 30 minutes here and there just to breathe.
So what are you doing in Animal Crossing at this point?
That's a good question, because I've kind of reached that point now. See, I've amassed about 140, 150 hours of playtime. I'm not sure exactly. So, I mean, I've basically compressed an entire year and a half's worth of Animal Crossing in the last month. My town is flourishing. I'm very happy with the way Googly has developed. There's still a lot of little things to do there. But really, I think maybe now I've gotten into that flow where I'm playing Animal Crossing the right way, where I'm just letting things happen at their own pace. Catch some fish, walk around, maybe deliver some packages to somebody standing next to another villager because they're too fucking lazy to give it to them. Just
You're not
things
like
like
power
that.
gaming it anymore.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm just trying to collect stuff and just chillax. It's more of a relax before bedtime type of thing, or during breaks at work type of game.
That's
now.
pretty good.
And it's nice, and I think that's really the way I eventually wanted to get that way. But man, that city building stuff that you can do in the game just hooked me, so I got obsessed with it really early on, and now I'm finally starting to slow down and just take it as it comes.
That's good. I really like. It's kind of unique to this game, that style of pacing. Because I remember when I played the DS version for the first time, I just wanted to do everything, and I want to do everything right away. But you can't, just for one reason or another.
Right.
And this was essentially your first Animal Crossing in a long time, anyway.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I did get obsessed, and there's still a lot to do. But now I feel like I want to slow the pace down, and I love how I was able to, play the game at my own pace. Because in the previous games, you could not do everything at once. Here, I felt like I could do a lot right out of the starting gate. Like a lot more options were open for me as the
And if
player.
you wanted to sort of like you said, power play it, you could.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not playing Animal Crossing that way. I mean, I have not. I mean, I think there are 5 or 6 days into the game, and I had friends that were telling me, "Oh, I've done all of the upgrades on my house."
No,
and,
really?
Yeah, and I'm still at this point. I've not done all the upgrades to my house. I still have shops closed on Main Street. I mean, it's crazy that I was in your town recently, Paul, and I was in your wife's town, and I could not believe how developed you guys were. And I'm like, well, I don't want you coming over my shabby towns. But no, I like that sort of 30 minutes a day, 45 minutes a day, play the stock market a little bit, check in with my villagers. That pace kind of works for me, and I don't want everything out of the front gate. I want... I like sort of being beholden to the calendar. I like sort of on August 1st. I'm like, oh, what bugs can I catch? How can I add to my museum?
And that's essentially how I'm playing it.
That's where you are at this point. Yeah,
I've reached
exactly.
that point. I mean, at first, I think I just got obsessed with all the city customization you can do, and I'm still doing that. I'm still working on it. If you thought my town was good before, wait till you see it in a month, my friend. It will. You'll never want to leave. It'll be a tourist trap. But I love that. I love that it's a self-regulating pacing in this version of the game, and that's fantastic, because before I really was beholden to the rules of the game. Now I get to have a lot more control and satisfaction in what I'm doing. Now, I don't want to spoil something, but I discovered something that's new in this game that could not do in the previous games, and I can't really spoil it, as much as there is an Animal Crossing spoiler. Man. But it has to do with one of the city projects you can build and the coffee shop, so I'll leave it at that.
Oh, cool.
I still have to. I got my coffee shop on the projects list. I keep forgetting to go actually build it.
Neat little surprise in the coffee shop if you have it for a week.
It's expensive. I don't have a coffee shop yet. I keep seeing it on a list, and it's a lot of dollars. And the citizens don't chip in very much to help support those projects.
I think I must have put in almost 2 million bells into my city at this point.
Oh man,
yeah,
it's a lot. Yeah. I really enjoy that. I have a better expectation on how to play it.
Sure, yeah.
Because I still haven't gotten a song from KK Slider because I always forget. It's
oh wow,
Saturday night, right? He still does it Saturday night.
Still does Saturdays.
But I'm always it'll be Sunday afternoon, and I'll be like, oh, I forgot again. And on the DS, I would have been livid. I was like, oh, I missed a song. It's a week wasted. But now I'm just like, oh, I'll get it next week.
Well, that's progress for you, DJ. That's impressive.
Yes, I'm making some progress, some self-improvement.
Right, exactly.
But I'm fully expecting to be playing this for a long time. I'm looking forward to being able to keep playing it a year from now. So that's good.
Right.
It's
and there are hundreds of songs, and you kind of get one or two every Saturday night. So
are there hundreds of songs?
I believe there are hundreds. Yeah,
there's a lot. I don't know how many. I mean, what we do on Saturday nights, if we're at home, we plug Animal Crossing up into our stereo system.
Oh my
and listen
God,
to the songs on the large
biggest
speaker.
Dorks.
Oh, we're the biggest dorks, and it's so awesome. It's great.
Oh, I can't believe it. I'm not surprised at all, but that's still incredible. I just found out. So this is my last factoid.
Yeah.
Every Lunar New Year, there's a medal you can get, or some kind of medal that has one of the Chinese zodiac animals on it. And there are 12 of them. So unless you're changing the clock on your 3DS, you're going to be playing this until 2025 to get all these medals, because you get one per year. So
that's cool.
So good luck with that.
Yeah, that's not happening. I'll just say one last thing about Animal Crossing that kind of caught me off guard. There's a couple of animals who are in my town that I wasn't very close with. And let me just put it this way, I could not let them move away. They got all sad-faced McGee when I said, yeah, okay, see you later. And then I felt really bad, and now I'm good friends with everybody in my town. So, yeah.
That's nice.
All right, let's move on.
Let's get into the heart of this week's show before this just spirals into 45 minutes of Animal Crossing conversation. We got a really nice tweet from our buddy Don't Judge My ADD, who I think we actually mentioned a little earlier in the show, with a link to a piece he wrote at gamepodunk.com. We'll include a link to the whole thing in our show notes, so definitely check that out. It's good stuff. And we'll pull out kind of the heart of it here is that he feels like gamers need more choices to scale their gaming experiences. In which he says, old school JRPGs were my go-to games in periods of my life when I had ample time. But now that he's a bit older and a parent, he doesn't necessarily have time to devote 60 hours per an RPG. And the grind basically was unavoidable. But he had the time in the past to enjoy the journey as well as the destination. And says now, though, that he can only squeeze in a few hours between work, parenting, and social life, and that trying to conquer a 60-hour game occupies months and months of gaming time for him. He says, consequently, I find myself drawn to closed worlds or linear tracks where I know I'll come out of a 15-hour experience having experienced the story and a fair quantity of gameplay. He also says, in the context of a game I purchased for a fixed price, it seems to me that we're at a stage in game development where the player should have the freedom to avoid grinding or skipping fetch quests to not be hindered in advancing through the game. We like that. We think that's kind of interesting and cool, and it definitely kind of speaks to maybe our lives and where we're at with games at this point.
Dude, that's almost an exact parallel to where I am.
Right, precisely.
Like, that's exactly how I feel.
Kind of ties into some of the things that we were talking about, actually.
I mean, I'm not even a
10
parent,
minutes ago.
So, oh my God, if I have kids, I won't have any hours to even breathe at that point.
Well, between cats and Animal Crossing, Paul, you're...
Sure. No, but I mean, totally. I cannot devote to 60-plus hours to RPGs anymore. I just can't do it.
Aren't you playing Project Cross Zone?
I don't know how long that is. Is it 60 hours? God, I hope not. Please tell me it's not 60 hours.
Oh, how long did Fire Emblem take you?
30 some odd.
Oh,
and that was that was a push.
So maybe not quite 60.
No,
but it's significantly longer than something like The Last of Us or something like that. So you managed to find the time somewhere.
Sometimes Fire Emblem is one of the first RPGs I've played in a while that I played to completion. I hate to admit that. Like I started Ni no Kuni at the beginning of the year and ended up forgetting about that. I'm playing Tales of the Abyss on the 3DS. I'm 35 hours into it, and I haven't touched it in weeks, and I don't know if I'm going to. Like, it's just starting to drag. I am more drawn, and I've mentioned this on the show, to those 10 to 15-hour games now. And as much as I love RPGs, and I'm trying my ass off this year to play them again, it's tough. You know, when they're at that 40-plus hours is really my breaking point.
Yeah. I can't think of a lot of games that I've played ever that have required that kind of time commitment from me. I mean, I've talked a lot about Dragon Quest IX, and that's probably the sort of most amount of time I've ever dumped into a single-player game, like over 100 hours. But that's nothing compared to what you put into it, DJ, which was a lot more.
A lot
more.
Oh, man.
And that was kind of monumental for me, but I think that was only possible because it was on a portable. And that happened over the course of months and months and months of gameplay. I think I dumped maybe a year of sort of bite-sized chunks into that. So yeah, there's just no way that I could commit 100 hours to a console game. There's no way I could sit on the couch for 100 hours. You know, basically it would boil down to me taking, 100 Saturday afternoons, because that's really the only time I find lately that I've got to sit in front of the TV and tie up the living room to play a game. And I want turnover. I want to be able to sort of experience new games and keep up with sort of new releases. And it's just not possible if every single time I boot up the PS3, I'm playing the same exact game over and over.
Right.
What keeps you from just going to for looking for these types of experience on a portable?
I've tried, actually. I've you guys have recommended some stuff. Certainly listeners have recommended a few things, and I've not found anything that's really kind of resonated the way that Dragon Quest IX did. I'm still open to it. I'm still trying. I actually just started playing the new Shin Megami Tensei 4, which I will talk about more next week. And I sort of crashed and burned on Fire Emblem earlier this year, but at some point maybe I'll go back to that. But I think as RPGs evolve and become sort of a little more realistic and a little more achievable for gamers who want to play them that way, it will be a little bit easier for me to kind of dip into them. And it seems like a lot of that stuff lately is coming out for the 3DS.
You know what it is for me personally? Like, as I mentioned, I've spent over 100 hours with Animal Crossing. But what's kind of different between a game like that where I can spend 100 hours and not even realize it, and one of these story-heavy games is it's hard to fit a really, really good story into 60 hours of gameplay. There's going to be points in that story where it drags ass. It just seems, and that really pops out to me. It feels really grindy. It feels like there's a lot of padding in a lot of these games, and that's something I don't have time for. It becomes boring, and I don't want to have to, spend 5 hours of boring crap to get to another 10 hours later. So I really wish that these developers would just trim the fat. You don't need to have it as a bullet point.
Is that what's going on? Is like the gameplay just not engaging you anymore after some point?
Eventually that does happen, yeah.
Is it worse than it was back then, where you're playing like Xenogears, Final Fantasy, those kind of things?
Well, back in those days, I used to enjoy, spending hundreds of hours discovering every nook and cranny, all the special abilities, maxing out my levels. Now I want to experience the story, the characters. It needs to have a decent gameplay. It doesn't have to blow me away. But I'm finding that either the gameplay begins to drag or the story hits a wall where you can tell they're starting to drag it out so they can pad it, and so they can say on the back of the box 60 hours of gameplay or whatever, because that's something people want or expect out of certain types of games.
Sure.
Doesn't resonate with me anymore at all. Trim that fat. And he does kind of mention that. Don't judge my ADD. He does kind of mention that in his little blog post, where we can kind of scale our experiences or something like that. I would love to see, a 60-hour game that I could complete in 15 hours or 20 hours and skip a lot of the crap.
I think it's some of the games that I think you've been most enthusiastic about, like Chrono Cross and Radiant Historia that I know you played recently. Those are kind of finite experiences, have very sort of clear kind of beginning, middle, and ends, and aren't meant to be sort of 100-hour plus kind of things, right?
No, Radiant Historia was very tight. The pacing was very tight. I think it took like 26 hours, which is still long for some people, but that's I'm willing to do that.
It's pretty short for a RPG.
Exactly.
Right, sure.
Yeah. And Chrono Trigger, that's like 20 hours on my first playthrough back in 1995. 20 hours for the first playthrough, so...
And but I mean to go back to Don't Judge My ADD's point is that, he doesn't want necessarily for games to be made that are 15 hours long that have all the JRPG stuff in it. He wants to be able to sort of chart his path through a game that way.
Would be really interesting.
So if somebody wants to put 60 to 100 hours into it, those options are available to them. He wants to be able to get the full experience in a sort of concise 15-hour package. And I don't know that I've been able to have that experience with any game. It feels like, you kind of have to devote yourself to the lifestyle or just sort of admit defeat and realize you're not going to see all there is to see.
I was going to say, I haven't played a JRPG in quite a while, but I feel like more games are starting to go that way. Maybe not JRPGs necessarily, but they'll have a fairly tight main campaign just because that's all they can pull off on their budget or whatever. But then they'll have all the side stuff or additional difficulties or features that you can go back and really explore if you want to. And I'm thinking of stuff like, The Last of Us even, or BioShock, where you can they kind of set themselves up for multiple playthroughs. But
Tomb Raider too. Tomb Raider, the new Tomb Raider, is very much built for that. Is that you can stick to the story and not go down any sort of side paths and really kind of get an efficient experience out of it and see all there is to see. But this is a big, open, kind of desolate island with very distinct sort of districts for exploring. And if you really want to kind of look in every corner and solve every puzzle and get every trophy, there's way more gameplay to be done in Tomb Raider, which is why I still have the game and want to get back to it, because I know there's a lot more there that I have not seen yet, and I really like that game.
Is that kind of open world, or is it more linear?
It's sort of open world In chunks, yeah, definitely. It does sort of channel you to very specific story points that kind of progress. But it's very open. There are a lot of sort of wide open spaces and caves and nooks and crannies. So again, if you want to start sort of picking through the environment and really looking for hidden things, they are there to be found.
It's got really wide open and interesting level design is the way I would describe it. Not really open world, but really cool level design in there that you can explore if you want to. And it's nice that developers are recognizing that there is kind of that split in the amount of time. Disposable time, I guess, is a thing now, you know. That a lot of working people just, I don't know, people with kids, I can only imagine.
I hear a different number every time it's cited, but they say the sort of average age of a gamer is in mid-30s at this point, 35 to 37. And I mean, that's sort of working class. Essentially, that's, you know, people who are spending 8 to 10 hours or more at a desk every single day. So, it's, I mean, I have that life. You know, add 2 hours at the either end of that in the car, and it's just not possible to devote my every waking moment to a video game. So I do want to be able to cross games off of a list. I want to be able to sort of participate in a summer challenge where I can sort of say I hammered out 10 games and I have 10 very distinct experiences that I can speak to, rather than, you know, I guess being proud of devoting 100 hours to one package. That's cool, I think, in terms of the amount of money that you put into, you know, a $40 game and get 100 hours out of it. I think that's an awesome dollar per hour ratio, but it's just so hard to commit myself to that at this point.
I'm kind of stuck because on one hand, I don't have as much time, and I'd like to be able to play all the games coming out and have these diverse experiences like you're talking about. But it's kind of like a lot of them fall into the category like you mentioned earlier, where it's like I would have liked to have played them. I don't necessarily want to play them.
Sure.
Because everybody's like, oh, you got to play Tomb Raider. That's really good. You got to play like Sleeping Dogs or whatever. And when I think back of all the games I really enjoyed playing on previous consoles and like sinking a whole lot of time into, they were like, they were kind of more the JRPG side of things, but I would like really get into them. Like I do a lot of the side quests and really familiarize myself with everything that game had to offer. And I'm kind of sad that just the pace of games coming out. I mean, there's so many coming out these days that you have to really pick and choose which games you're going to do that with.
It's a buyer's market.
Yeah, makes me a little sad. And I'm glad I've been able to do it this year, especially with Animal Crossing and Monster Hunter and whatever else I'm playing on the long scale.
Well, Monster Hunter is a very specific thing, and it's impressive and surprising to me how devoted to that you are. What is it that you feel that you get out of that?
Well, it's just becoming more proficient at the game, I think. I mean, there's a lot to do in it. Even once you spent hundreds of hours mastering some weapon or fighting some monster, there's another weapon that you haven't used. He's like, oh, I'm going to go do this now. So it's almost like a second game that just shares enough familiarity with the one you were just playing.
I think I have this mental image of you kind of redoing the same things over and over, but you feel that it continues to amp up challenges and give you new objectives in such a way that it feels fresh when you go back to it.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, there is a lot of like doing the same stuff over and over, like fighting the same bosses, but it's always a little different. And then in Monster Hunter's case, it's still engaging enough every time where you don't feel like you're just grinding it out.
Well, there's a social aspect to it too. You play it with friends, right?
Yeah.
That's got to be a major hook, I would imagine.
But also, it's one of those games where there's just a lot to like know about it. There's a lot to learn. So I'll spend a lot of time just reading, like Monster Hunter forum posts, like, oh, you know, I found out this combination works really well, and you know, how do the mechanics surrounding this weapon work? Which is kind of like on the like really hardcore side of things. I don't think a lot of people.
Is that how you prefer to do your gaming? Like just complete mastery of specific gameplay mechanics or games instead of going from title to title and completing?
You know, I previously, like, I don't know if I got that much into mastering the mechanics, but I love that it's an option. And
okay, so you like the option, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I do that a lot in Monster Hunter just because, you know, learning that stuff makes you a better player at it too, like when you really have an understanding of how everything in the game works. But you could do that, or people do that with like first-person shooters, like Battlefield, or people become just like walking encyclopedias of every League of Legends character and all the different matchups. And I love being able to like, if I had to choose between a few games where I could do that and playing like every AAA headlining title that came out in a year, I would totally go with the former.
Oh, I'm the absolute opposite of that.
Yeah,
I think I might be leaning towards that too, Randy.
That makes me real twitchy to think, geez, I only... And it's not even a numbers game, really. It's not even a matter of getting to the end of the year and going, I beat 55 games this year. But I have friends that play 1 or 2 games. I have, a coworker who played EverQuest for 11 years, I think, and it was the only PC game he had ever played, never owned a console. It was his one video game experience. I have a friend who plays only Rock Band, who plays nothing else, and that's his singular video game experience. And that makes me nervous. There is so much other stuff to play that I do feel kind of that they're missing out. They're left out of some experience that I am getting out of gaming that they are missing. And they're perfectly content with that. And I've had fun with those games as well. But no, I like it to be finite. I am the guy that the 10 to 12 hour game is made for.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I'm kind of afraid of, passing up all these other games. But then at the same time, I know if I would go into these, and, well, like, take BioShock Infinite, for example. Like, I blasted through that game in, like, 3 days because it was, like, a mix of different factors. Like, I just wanted to get through the story and all that.
Sure.
But, like, compare that to playing another shooter. I can't think of another example. Like Perfect Dark or GoldenEye, maybe, where I spend tons and tons of time playing that back on the N64. And, like, I couldn't say, like, I'm BioShock Infinite, I'm very knowledgeable at that at all. It was very much like a really fast experience. And then it's like kind of, okay, I'm done with that, put it back on the shelf, cross it off the list, move on to the next thing.
Well, that's that churn.
That makes me kind of disappointed.
We didn't have that churn as a kid, is that you had 1 or 2 games and you played the shit out of those, and if you were lucky, you got a new 1 or 2 for Christmas. I mean, that was my life anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, now it's, God, I have to finish this because this next thing comes out next week, and if I don't finish it, I'm going to shelve it, and it won't be done, and it will be incomplete in my heart and in my mind and on my shelf. And so, yeah, there's sort of and there's a social pressure that goes with it, too. But part of my want to finish BioShock Infinite as quickly as I did was to be able to participate in the conversations that were happening around me.
Yeah.
And to be able to get through without any spoilers. That was my biggest fear with the sort of the pace that I was completing The Last of Us at, was that at some point someone is going to ruin this fucking ending of this game for me.
Yes.
It's going to ruin it for me yet.
A tweet or on Facebook somewhere, and I'm going to be livid, and it's going to suck all of the joy out of that moment. For me when I get to it in the game. And mercifully, that did not happen. So I went into it completely blind to what to expect. And it was glorious. But part of it, and Don't Judge My AD gets into this into his article too, says being part of the conversation in games that aren't really resonating with me, rather than shelving them, I could tear through them and be part of the conversation, at least maybe contribute to the game's buzz. There's a lot of pressure to that. I particularly think we create that pressure for ourselves with a show, is that I feel like...
I've felt that way before. I felt really shitty coming into this week's show. Hey guys, I haven't played anything new.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, that's not cool either, to feel that kind of pressure. Because how can you enjoy something if you're playing it with outside pressures? I want to play games for the enjoyment of playing games.
Right.
I enjoy...
I mean, and in exchange, you get to have this really deep experience with Animal Crossing, and you're probably getting way more out of that game than other people. Like, some people pick that up and they're like, oh, I have to play this for how long? I can't do everything.
That's kind of a different beast, entirely, but I see where you're going with that for sure. I am having a very strong connection with that game, and I haven't had that in a long time, and that's very nice to have, for sure. But I do understand that draw to have that conversation about something, like those water cooler moments when you're talking about a game, so to speak. I haven't had that in a while because I'm behind the 8 ball when it comes to a lot of the new releases, or some of the titles I'm playing are really quirky. Like, even at work, I work with a lot of people who play, first-person shooters, Call of Duty. Heck, even my boss plays with some of the coworkers there. And that's really weird, but I can't participate in those discussions because I'm sitting there, shaking trees and gathering fruit. So, I do kind of.
What if you did that? Have you considered it?
Playing those, like joining in onto that kind of experience? Not really. No, it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But at the same time, even though it's not something I'm interested in, I do feel kind of left out of the conversation that I can't join in the group discussion about, that match we had last night or whatever the current game du jour is. I'm behind the eight ball. I haven't played Last of Us. I haven't finished Tomb Raider, etc., etc. So I'm left out of that, and I do understand that draw and kind of missing out. But at the same time, I do not want to play a game having outside pressures, or like a deadline or something like that, because then I'm not going to enjoy that experience as much either.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. I can see that I can create that pressure from myself and from my consumption of social media, so it's completely self-imposed. But So, advice for Don't Judge My ADD. I think we established that there are games that scale that way, but I definitely think it is an emerging trend in game design. We are bound to see more of it, certainly as time and tide go by.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just worried that they could scale this down, or you could scale it down yourself by choosing to forego parts of the game. But then, how much do you lose in the process, and what do you get in return? Is it just moving on to the next game? Do you want, a large number of experiences versus being able to really spend a lot of time with this one title? I don't know, and you'll have to, answer that question for yourself.
Right. Cool. And we have this other.
I'm looking forward to playing Persona 3 and 4 someday.
Yeah, those are 100+ hour experiences, aren't they? Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have
right
fun
after I get through my backlog challenge.
Going to school and making friends and attending class all day in Persona 3.
Yes. Bring it on.
I did that for way more hours than I realized even before I went, this is stupid, I'm not playing this anymore. So do you want to get into this thing about gaming difficulty, DJ? We had this other little article.
We have this really interesting other topic. It's kind of a tangent, but I think we can come back to that.
Yeah, we're running a little tight on time, and many thanks to Don't Judge My ADD for this fruitful and interesting article that he wrote and shared with us.
Yes, go check out the original post for sure. We'll have that in the link.
And his website there, Game Podunk, has a comment section, so definitely chime in and get involved in the conversation with him too.
I definitely want to revisit the difficulty thing though, because it ties in very nicely to about the scaling of your experience there. And I know that there was a major title last year that got a lot of shit for doing something like this, and I was a big fan of it. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. We'll shelve that and definitely come back to it.
Oh man, it's the first 2-part episode.
Yeah,
to be continued.
It will be to be continued next week. Dun 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 dun.
Excellent.
All right, so last call before we say goodnight. We've got time for one last quick thing. Again, I'll hug the mic and go first. I mentioned that I just started recently playing Shin Megami Tensei 4. I was persuaded into buying that by this really, really cool deal that Nintendo was offering, that if you buy Fire Emblem Awakening and the new Shin Megami Tensei, either physical or through the eShop or a combination of the two, they will give you a $30 eShop credit. You just have to register both of the little Club Nintendo codes by the end of August, and you immediately get the $30 that goes right back into your eShop account for you to play other cool games in the eShop.
What a deal.
And there are quite a few in there. So it basically drops the price of these two kind of top-shelf 3DS JRPGs down to about $50 or $60 combined.
That's one way of looking at it.
They're both supposed to be spectacular, too, so if you're really into that, then go for it.
Yep. The process by which you get your credit is a little twisty and turny, so I will put a link to the official directions for how to do it in our show notes. And enjoy your money. And if you're looking for things to spend your $30 eShop credit on, we definitely have strong opinions about that. Ask us.
Oh, and the best part about this deal, even if you bought Fire Emblem on release, it still counts towards this. You don't have to buy it now with the new Shin Megami Tensei. If you bought Fire Emblem at release, you're already in.
Yep. Just got to get in there before August 31st.
Awesome.
Yep.
And that pretty much sold me. I'll probably be picking up Shin Megami this weekend just because of that deal.
That's pretty cool of them. I mean, I imagine there's a lot of overlap, like people who are going to play both of these. So kind of a nice little freebie for those guys.
Well, it sets the stage nicely for the crossover that is rumored to be in development between Fire Emblem and the Shin Megami. What I've heard referred to as Mega 10. The Fire Emblem and Mega 10 series are doing a crossover game somewhere in the future. And this, I think they're trying to get folks in at the ground floor on these two experiences before that comes around.
Clever. Very clever.
Yeah, totally. DJ, what's your last call?
I was turned on to the Steam game it's a PC game rather, that's still in development by a group called Doctor Entertainment called Gear Up. My buddy Naughty Secrets mentioned this to me. It's in some kind of alpha pre-development phase, but you can get early access to it now on Steam for free. And it's like a little kind of a tank deathmatching game. But it's really cool. You can like build your own custom tank. You can like switch between a bunch of different weapons and turrets and treads and all sorts of different crazy parts. Like you can put a jet engine on your tank if you want. And then it's just kind of brainless deathmatch, but it's a lot of fun. It's hilarious. You can check it out on Steam or at play-gearup.com. And then as a kind of a secondary note, I put in $10 as kind of like a starter pack or whatever, because you get a bunch more tank parts. And just want to let you know that is an option. You can support the development a little bit.
Awesome.
Cool. Paul, what's your last call this week?
I'll keep it real quick. I have a recommendation for a show on Netflix, guys.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Courtney and I decided to check out that Sherlock, that remake or whatever the hell you want to call it. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure it's been recommended to you by Netflix, a nice little algorithm there. So I'm just going to say, check it out because it's really good.
If you like British mysteries featuring people who were in Star Trek movies recently.
Real quick, it's a modern take on the original Sherlock Holmes stories. So it's the original stories that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote, but takes place in modern-day London. And it's really awesome, and the acting is incredible. And Sir Cumberbund, whatever the hell his name is great as Sherlock.
Oh, man, yeah. Also,
highly recommend it.
Super weird looking.
He is, but he's also very handsome at
know.
the same time. I'm like,
He is. It's very confusing.
Great actor. And Martin Freeman is excellent as well. I didn't even know who he was until I saw The Hobbit, but he plays Dr. Watson. Their chemistry is fantastic.
Oh, cool.
And it's got a really awesome mix of drama and camp. Like 1 minute, it's the silliest, stupidest thing, and the next, it's like super serious crime drama. So definitely check it out. I believe each series has 6 episodes, and they're about an hour and a half long each, so like movie of the week type of episodes.
Oh, cool.
So it's a bit of a commitment. Production values are off the charts. Check it out if you have any interest in. And you don't even have to like Sherlock Holmes. It's just very interesting, a fun, dramedy, cop, buddy type thing. It's a weird hybrid.
Cool. All right. Well, let's wrap this thing up. If you have questions or comments about anything we talked about on the show, you can find us at VG Hangover on Twitter or VG Hangover on Facebook as well. Or you can just head to our blog at vghangover.com and let us know what's on your mind.
One more note. If you have an iTunes account, please look us up on iTunes in the iTunes store and leave us a review, because that's great.
Oh, yeah. That helps us.
And we would love to hear from you, too.
Definitely. Do that thing.
It doesn't have to be a positive review, even just you can be honest, but positive reviews are always nice.
Sure.
They're nicer.
Don't want to make anybody sad when they're on the internet.
I think we just spent an hour doing that, Randy.
Right,
So.
exactly. With apologies. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a good night.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.
You've been listening to Video Game Hangover. Send your questions and topics to us on Twitter at VG Hangover, or leave a comment at vghangover.com and we'll feature the best stuff on a future episode. This week's music is by Disaster Piece from his original albums Rise of the Obsidian Interstellar and Level. Find these and more at disasterpiece.com. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.